The snow started early that morning, not loud, not fierce, just a steady hush of white, falling gently on rooftops and sidewalks, softening the edges of the world. It was the season's first real storm in Everpine Ridge, a quiet mountain town wrapped in pine and silence. On the stone steps of St. Andrew's Chapel, Clara Lane sat in her wedding dress, soaked and shivering. The hem of her gown dragged across the icy ground, stained gray where it met the melting snow. Her hands trembled in thin, fingerless gloves. Her dark hair, once pinned and curled, now clung damply to her cheeks. Her belly, round with life, rose slightly beneath layers of satin. She had been sitting there for over an hour. Since the message came in, "I can't do this." "I'm sorry." 7 words, one ending. Clara didn't cry. Not exactly. Maybe her tears had run dry days ago, or maybe the cold had frozen something deeper inside her. She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a small leather notebook. The edges were frayed, the corners curled like an old photograph. Her faded handwriting stretched across the cover. Names he'll never hear. Clara opened it slowly, her fingers stiff with cold. Page after page held names. Names she had whispered into quiet nights. Names she had believed in, hoped someone would say out loud with her someday. Mila, soft like a lullaby. Rowan, strong and kind. Mave, brave little light in winter. She held the notebook close, like a promise no one else had ever heard, and then, just above a breath, Clara whispered, not even sure if she said it aloud, "Nobody wants my baby." Behind her, the chapel's side door creaked open. A man stepped out carrying a slim suitcase and a laptop bag. He paused, mid-step, startled by the voice. Nathan Cole hadn't expected anyone to still be here. The wedding had been called off hours ago. He had stayed behind to help the pastor tidy up, and because he welcomed the silence. He saw her from behind, didn't recognize her. But heartbreak? That he knew too well. Nathan hesitated, then approached her slowly, his boots crunching lightly in the snow. "Miss?" he asked gently, his voice low and warm. "Are you all right?" No response. She turned her head slowly. Her eyes were rimmed red but dry, not crying. Something in her gaze held him still. Pride, maybe, or pain, or both. "I'm fine," she said, but the notebook clutched tightly to her chest said otherwise. Nathan glanced down at her wedding dress, her shoes, just satin flats, soaked through. "You'll freeze out here." She looked away. "Doesn't matter." He didn't argue. He simply lowered himself onto the step beside her, carefully placing his bag in the snow. They sat in silence, not awkward, just tentative, like two people standing at the edge of something neither of them could name. Not alone, not anymore. Clara didn't know why the man beside her hadn't left yet. Everyone else had vanished the moment the chapel bells stopped ringing. They'd closed their car doors and turned their backs, like she hadn't even existed, just a forgotten bride in the snow. But he stayed. He didn't offer advice. He didn't say it'll be okay. He simply sat there, quiet, steady, and something about that silence made Clara feel safe. "You were the one playing violin earlier?" she asked, not turning her head. "I was," Nathan replied, his voice low and calm. "You play beautifully," she said. "I heard before everything fell apart." He nodded slightly. "Thank you." Silence returned, soft as the snowfall. Nathan glanced at the notebook in her hands. "That's a beautiful cover," he said, gently. "Worn in the best way, like it means something." Clara looked down. Her heartbeat felt louder than before. After a moment, she surprised herself by holding it out to him, hands trembling slightly, but she didn't pull back. He took it with care, like it was something sacred. He opened to the first few pages, reading the handwritten names. Mave, brave little light in winter. Rowan, would have been a great big brother. He paused at Mave, smiling softly. "That one, that's beautiful." She'll never hear it, Clara murmured. Barely a breath. He looked up. Why not? Her lips pressed together. It took a long moment for her to speak. Because I'm not enough. I thought I could be, but no one wants all of this. Her hand moved instinctively over her belly. Nathan didn't flinch, didn't look away, didn't say something easy or hollow. He simply returned the notebook and then, without thinking, reached out and took her hand. His hand was warm, steady. Real Clara tensed at first. She wasn't used to this. Someone who didn't pity her, didn't try to fix her, didn't run away. He was just there. The snow kept falling, blanketing the world in silence. Time slowed. A bell rang somewhere in the distance. A child's laughter echoed from the parsonage nearby. Clara closed her eyes for just a moment. For the first time all day, she allowed herself to believe, just a little, that maybe something was still waiting for her. She didn't realize how tightly she was holding Nathan's hand until he shifted and gave her fingers a gentle squeeze. Not to let go, but just to say, I'm still here. Clara blinked back the sting behind her eyes. How long had it been since someone stayed? The sky turned gray faster than Clara expected. The gentle snow had thickened, wind carving cold across her cheeks. Nathan glanced upward, then at her. If you've got nowhere to be, you probably shouldn't be out here much longer. Clara hesitated, not because she was afraid, but because she wasn't used to this, stepping into someone else's world, allowing herself to need. It's just shelter, Nathan said, voice even, not pressing. A warm roof, some tea. You don't have to say anything. She looked at him for a long moment, then nodded, barely. Nathan's cabin was 10 minutes away, nestled down a snow-covered road lined with evergreens, standing like quiet witnesses to the season. When she stepped inside, Clara paused. Not because it was lavish, as one might expect from a man like Nathan, but because it was simple, and it felt like home. Wood beams. A fire crackled in the stone hearth. Photos lined the hallway, a woman with kind eyes and sun-kissed skin holding a little boy. There were books, dozens, on every shelf, and, in the corner of the living room, sat a half-finished Lego spaceship. A boy thundered down the stairs, socks sliding. "Dad, it's really snowing," he shouted, then stopped when he saw Clara. Big eyes, curious, not shy. "Hi there," Clara said softly. Nathan rested a hand on the boy's shoulder. "Clara, this is Leo, my son." "Leo, this is Miss Clara. She's a guest." Leo stared at her belly, unfazed. "You have a baby in there?" Clara smiled gently. "I do, a little one, growing every day." "What's her name?" Leo asked. Clara hesitated. "I haven't picked one yet." Leo thought hard, then said confidently, "I think we should call her Jelly Bean, 'cause she looks like those squishy candies I hide under my pillow." Clara laughed, for the first time all day. Nathan brewed peppermint tea while Clara and Leo sat under a navy blanket near the fire. Leo talked about his dinosaur figures, his war against matching socks, and how his grandma always loses at dominoes. Clara listened like every word was precious. It felt strangely peaceful. Nathan returned and handed her a steaming mug. She took it with both hands. "Thank you," she murmured. "You're welcome," he said. Silence settled, not awkward, just warm, restful. "The woman in the photos," Clara asked quietly, "was that your wife?" Nathan nodded. "Amelia. She passed away 3 years ago. Car crash, rainy night, tires skidded." He looked down. "I didn't think I'd come back from that, but Leo, he needed more than someone who paid bills. He needed me to be present." Clara sat still, her fingers tracing the rim of her cup. "I left the city. Sold everything. Bought this place. It was my grandfather's. I run the company remotely now. Leo needed quiet. I guess I did too." She nodded. Everything he said felt like it fell into a place inside her that had been empty for too long. She doesn't have anyone, Clara said softly. No father, no grandparents, just me. And I'm scared that I won't be enough. Nathan didn't respond right away. He looked her straight in the eye. You're not alone anymore. Clara met his gaze. The fire cast a warm glow across his face, and for the first time that day, she saw something no one had offered her yet. Belief. Leo had drifted to sleep beside her, his head resting on her leg. Clara placed a hand over her belly, where her baby shifted lightly, like she too could feel it. Safety. The fire had faded to glowing embers, crackling softly like whispers in the quiet. Clara still sat there, her hand resting gently on her belly, where the baby had just kicked, faint but real, as if listening too. Nathan sat across from her, empty mug in hand. Leo had been tucked onto the couch, wrapped in a throw blanket, sleeping soundly with messy hair and a toy car in his fist. Have you ever dreamed a name for her? Nathan asked, voice low and calm. Clara nodded. Once. I dreamed I was standing in a snow-covered field. I was holding a baby girl wrapped in a blue blanket. Someone asked her name, and without thinking I said, Mave. Nathan repeated it softly, tasting the name, Mave. Little light in winter, Clara added, her lips curling faintly. I gave it that meaning after I woke up. He didn't speak for a moment. Then, quietly, he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a pencil. May I borrow your notebook? Clara hesitated, then nodded. She reached into her bag and handed him the worn leather journal, the one with bent corners and faded edges. Nathan flipped to a blank page. Carefully, he wrote, Silas, meaning of the forest, because he'd need to grow strong even when it's cold. Clara stared in silence, throat tightening. You thought about baby names? After Amelia passed, he said slowly, I didn't think I'd ever love again. But Leo needed more than grief. So I started writing names, just in case hope ever showed up again. They held each other's gaze for a long, quiet beat. It said more than words could. Clara opened the notebook again, her fingers trembling slightly. She looked at the name he'd written, then at her own pages. Dreams unspoken. Names whispered to no one. She spoke gently. Do you still think Mave fits? Nathan didn't hesitate. It fits perfectly, strong and soft, just like you. Clara smiled, hesitant but true. Then she turned to a fresh page and wrote, Mave Grace Cole, brave little light in winter. Just a name, just a line of ink, just a page. And yet, somehow, it felt like a beginning. For the first time, she didn't feel like she was carrying this baby alone. The name, once whispered only in dreams, had now been spoken aloud, written down, chosen, by two. And somehow that made her heart ease, as if part of the fear had melted in the firelight. Nathan sat quietly across from her, saying nothing, but the way he looked at the notebook, with a stillness, a quiet depth, told Clara everything. He saw the child, he honored her, and in some quiet way he was honoring Clara too. She lifted her eyes, met his. No love confession, no promises. Just something unspoken but real, we are sharing this. And in that fleeting moment, Clara knew Mave belonged somewhere now. 3 days after the night they chose Mave's name, just as the snow began to ease, Clara found a letter in the mailbox. White envelope, no return address, just her name. Clara, written in a hand she couldn't mistake. Derek, her fingers trembled slightly as she opened it. The note was short. Clara, if you're still in town, please meet me. I know I was wrong. You have every right to hate me, but please give me a chance to say what I should have said before. No apology, no mention of Mave. Clara folded it back up. Her chest felt neither angry nor afraid, just still. Derek came the next afternoon. Nathan was outside, drawing Leo's toys on the porch rail, when he heard the knock. Clara was in the kitchen. She looked up, walked to the window. He was really there standing on the porch, in a crisp coat, hair styled, expression carefully composed. He looked just as he always had, polished, confident. but now with a hint of hesitation. Nathan turned. "Want me to get the door?" Clara shook her head. "No, this one's mine." She opened the door. Cold air swept in, sharp and clean. "Clara," Derek said softly, you look different." "I'm not standing at the church steps anymore," she replied, voice calm, "carrying your child, waiting for you to show up." He swallowed. "I panicked. I was scared. I didn't know how to—" "You had your chance," she said, cutting him off. "When I called and you didn't answer. When I sat alone with a notebook full of names you never wanted to hear. I came back, Clara. I'm here. Too late. Clara, we could still—" "No, you had your chance. You left when it mattered most." Her voice wasn't angry, just steady, the voice of someone who had once been shattered and put herself back together. Derek looked down. No more words to defend himself. Nothing to say that could undo it. "What did you name her?" he asked, like reaching for one last thread. Clara's voice was quiet, but certain. "Mave Grace Cole." His eyes flickered. "Cole? She deserves a name tied to kindness. It doesn't need to be blood. It just needs to be belonging." Derek didn't respond. Clara gave a slow nod, and then she gently closed the door. Not with drama, not in anger, just enough. Nathan stood by the porch post, eyes gazing toward the pine trees beyond. He hadn't watched the whole thing, hadn't interfered. He'd just been there. Clara stepped beside him, quiet for a moment, then asked softly, "You heard it all?" Nathan didn't turn to her. "I saw him, and I saw you," standing steady. She looked out at the snow-covered landscape. "I used to think I was weak. I thought I needed him to become a mother, but now I know I don't need anyone to complete me." Nathan nodded, barely. "I know. I never thought you needed me." "No," Clara said, turning to face him. "You didn't come to fix anything. You didn't try to save me. You just stayed. And sometimes that's everything." That night, as Clara tucked Leo into bed, the boy blinked up at her and asked, "Who was that man?" "Just someone from the past," Clara answered, smoothing his hair. "Did he make you sad?" Leo asked, eyes wide and honest. Clara smiled. "Once, maybe, but not anymore." "'Cause you have Jelly Bean now, and my dad too, right?" Clara looked toward the hallway, where soft golden light spilled in from the kitchen, where Nathan was rinsing out teacups, quietly, steadily, a picture without words, without grand gestures, but the safest place she'd ever known. She nodded. "That's right, Leo, I have us." Clara didn't know what lay ahead, but when the door closed behind Derek and Nathan was still there, saying nothing, simply being there, she knew the things that truly mattered were still with her. There was no more conflict inside her, only a quiet readiness for the storm, for the breaking point, and for the tiny soul preparing to enter the world. The snowstorm started in the late afternoon. Wind howled through the eaves, and the cabin looked small under the heavy blanket of white. Leo was racing around with a blanket tied to his shoulders like a cape. Nathan added more wood to the fireplace, the warmth pushed back against the cold. Clara stood quietly by the window, her hand resting on her belly. Mave shifted, a slow, deep movement, different than before, not just a kick, a whisper, "I'm coming." The first wave of pain hit around 8 p.m., soft at first, like a ripple across her abdomen. Clara frowned, steadying herself on the table. Nathan noticed but said nothing, just handed her a cup of tea, warm between her palms. Leo went to bed early, excited about the storm and the chance of no school tomorrow. By 11 p.m., Clara couldn't stand straight anymore. Leaning over the armchair, sweat clinging to her back, she gasped, "Nathan!" He was beside her in seconds. "Is it time?" She nodded, pale. "Too soon, but yes." Nathan didn't panic. He simply squeezed her hand. "We've got this." 12:10 a.m. The lights went out. No screams, no panic, just silence, the kind that makes you hold your breath. "Nathan," she whispered. "I'm here," came his voice from the kitchen. "Just a power outage." The fire still glowed, and a moment later the room filled with candlelight. Nathan had lit them all, on the windowsill, by the bed, on the dresser. Tiny flames, but steady in the storm. Clara sat on the edge of the bed, arms wrapped around her belly. Another contraction, this one sharper. "I can't do this," she whispered. "I'm scared, Nathan. What if I do something wrong?" He sat beside her, placing a hand on her back. "There is no wrong. There's only you and her. Your body knows what to do. I'm just here to remind you, you're not alone." The night dragged on, each contraction like a wave trying to break her apart. Clara bit her lip, her grip on Nathan's arm leaving marks. But she didn't stop, didn't turn away. "If my mom were here, she'd know what to say," she cried. "She'd tell me to be brave." Nathan pressed a cool cloth to her forehead. "She'd be proud, and if she were here, she'd say, 'Clara, you are stronger than you think.'" A tear slipped down her cheek, not from fear this time, but from something else. Faith returning. 1:32 a.m. Clara screamed. Her entire body shook, but she kept her eyes open. She didn't give in, not for a second. "No more push," Nathan murmured. "She's almost here." And then the sound came. A cry, sharp, high, piercing through the window panes and the wind. Alive, Nathan caught the baby, a tiny, squirming flame of life, red and raw and perfect. He placed her on Clara's chest. His hands trembled, his eyes shone. "Your daughter," he whispered. Clara clutched the baby close, her tears falling freely. "Hello, my love, Mave Grace. I've waited so long for you." Outside, the storm still raged, but in the cabin, by firelight and flickering candles, a new life had begun. No spotlight, no witnesses, no grand moment, just a woman who fought, a man who stayed, and a child who chose the right place to arrive. The small cabin on the hillside no longer echoed with the howl of wind through cracks in the wood. Instead, it filled with the soft breathing of a sleeping baby, the quiet giggles of Leo, and the gentle clink of a spoon in a mug of warm milk. The room glowed in amber light from the fireplace and from the low-hung lamps, reflecting off the wall where a photo hung, a woman with a gentle smile who had once been everything to Nathan. Clara sat in the rocking chair near the fire, Mave curled in her arms, peacefully asleep beneath a woolen blanket. Nathan peeled apples in the kitchen while Leo colored dinosaurs in a weathered book. No one spoke, but the silence felt full, like a melody with no lyrics. After everything, Clara had chosen to stay, not because someone begged her to, but because she had been seen, heard, loved, without condition. No wedding, no rings, just a house with laughter, a hand offered at the right moment, and a heart that didn't ask her to be perfect. Beside her sat the old notebook, its leather cover worn at the edges. Clara turned to the last page, where days earlier she had scribbled the first post-birth entry. She was born in a storm, but never alone. She added beneath it, "Mave Grace Cole, brave little light of winter, welcomed not with promises, but with actions, with a held hand, with warm tea, with silence that never left." When Nathan walked over and sat beside her, no words were needed. He rested a hand on the back of her chair, fingers brushing her shoulder, his gaze soft as it fell on Mave, as if the world had just begun again. Leo looked up from his coloring, glanced at his mom, then at Nathan. He didn't say Dad. But he didn't need to. The moment held more truth than any label ever could. Outside, the snow had stopped, but winter no longer felt like something to fear. It was just a backdrop for a beginning, for a family that needed no formal vows because the bond already lived in the smallest moments, staying up late, changing diapers, looking into each other's eyes and silently saying, "Thank you for staying." Everpine Ridge sparkled with lights. The winter festival had returned just like every year, but for Clara, everything felt different now. She stood near the hot cocoa stand, baby Mave bundled up and sleeping softly in her arms. Leo darted near the stage, laughing as colored lights flickered across his cheeks. Nathan stood on the small stage, violin in hand. No announcement, no spotlight. Just him, under a dusting of snow, eyes fixed on one person only. The first note rose into the crisp night. A wordless song, yet Clara could hear every beat of her own heart in it. It wasn't grand, it wasn't perfect. It was honest. Like the way he'd stayed, like the way he wiped her forehead through labor, like how he made no promises but showed up every single day. When the final note faded, Nathan didn't step down. He bent slightly and took something from Leo. A soft, cream-colored ribbon with gold-stitched words. The vow I kept. He turned to Clara. No grand gesture, no kneeling, no ring, just his steady voice. I don't have much to promise, except what I've already been doing. Waking up each morning choosing to love you. Closing the door each night, still here beside you. If you'll let me, I'd like to keep choosing you, not just today, but every day. Clara didn't speak right away. Mave stirred gently in her arms, as if moved by the music. Clara stepped forward, her shadow merging with Nathan's in the snowlight. She didn't need a wedding. She didn't need a title, because everything that truly mattered was already hers. She reached out and touched the front of his coat, right where his heart beat steady beneath. I'll say yes, she whispered, as long as you never stop choosing me again. Nathan smiled. Clara kissed him, softly, like a brush of winter wind. But it said everything. Down below, Leo let out a quiet whistle. Scattered applause echoed through the square, but everyone knew. This wasn't a proposal, this was a declaration. Mave still slept peacefully, and winter, as always, went on. Beautiful as the beginning it had always been. That winter didn't end in celebration. It ended in stillness, one that stayed. And quietly, without trying, they began again. Seasons shifted, snow melted, then came spring, laughter in summer, golden leaves of autumn. Through every season, they stayed. Time passed, through teacups warmed and cooled, through shared silence, through mornings when no one had to be alone anymore. 1 year later, Mave could walk now. She wobbled in tiny snow boots, arms swinging with each unsteady step. Leo ran ahead, laughing, leaving a trail of little footprints in the white powder. Clara followed slowly, her eyes on both children, a backpack slung over one shoulder, stuffed with scarves, cookies, and hot cocoa. Nathan was down at the bottom of the slope, setting up the sled. He looked up as Clara approached, their eyes meeting in a silent hello. The four of them began the snowy morning together. No rush, no need for perfection, just being together. The little cabin had more photos now, like one where Leo held Mave close, lips puckered in an attempt to lull her to sleep. Clara still kept the old notebook, now nearly full. Last night, with Mave asleep on her chest, Clara had opened it again. She brushed her fingers over the page filled with names she once wrote alone in the dark. Names no one read, pages no one turned. And then she added the final line. The names were never wasted. The silence only made room for music. The sledding scene looked like a painting. Leo shouted with joy as the sled glided forward. Nathan gripping the rope with steady hands. Clara sat behind him. Mave nestled against her chest, cheeks flushed pink from the cold, eyes shining like fresh snow. Wind tugged at Clara's hair, carrying the scent of pine and cocoa. She leaned into Nathan's shoulder, quiet, content. In that fleeting moment as the hill rushed beneath them, Clara thought, I wasn't rescued, I chose this. And for the first time in a long time, that choice felt like coming home.